Welcome to my channel. I thought I'd do something a little different today. People always say that, but then they don't really end up doing anything different. However, I put out a question the other day about period Q&A. I got some really fascinating things coming my way, but I will answer 10 questions that I think I'm able to, because a lot of it, I think, needs to go to either a gynecologist or a nurse, and possibly that's a follow-up I can do at some point, because I think it's really important, right? So why don't we start this period talk? Should I say welcome to the period place? Is that a bit much? It's a bit much, no. Period talk. So the first question I got is it safe to have sex during your period? I'm not sure why you decided, like a lot of you asked me that. I don't know why, but here's what I'll say. The first, I don't think there's anything wrong. I just think you have to take certain precautions. You have to have a towel. You have to make sure that you've covered the sheets, I guess. Some people find it really messy, but I don't think there's anything wrong per se in terms of is it a health risk, etc. Just take precautions is what I would say. And I feel like people don't like talking about period sex, but it exists. So maybe we just need to figure out how to create a conversation around safe, hygienic period sex. So that's what I would say about that. And here's another thing I would say. Have your partner wear a latex condom if possible. It'll protect against pregnancy and STIs. And if you have a tampon in, make sure that you remove it. And be open and honest with your partner. I think that's the most important bit, right? So the second question, is pain during my period normal? Is it necessarily a sign of fibroids? Pain is pretty common. A lot of women and girls experience pain in the form of cramps in your tummy, sometimes your back, your neck. The problem comes if it's excruciating pain that you've tried to take medication, etc., and it's not really going away. I had a lot of pain during my periods. I still do. And if I don't take contraceptives, for example, like the pill, I still have a lot of pain. Ended up that I had ovarian cysts growing, so I had a laparoscopy. That was many years ago, and I even put up a post about it. Because my pain was so bad, I felt like there was something wrong, and I was right about that. So if it's mild pain, take painkillers, it should go away. But if your pain is really bad and consistent, then there's probably an issue around endometriosis, fibroids also possibly, and that also speaks to if you bleed for more than a week when you're on your period. So there's some things where you should just consult your doctor and find out if you're okay. So that's what I can say about that. The other one I got was, do home remedies for cramps exist? Yes, they do. I try them all because, like I said, my cramps are pretty bad. So hot water bottle works really well for me. So hug that hot water bottle. Just make sure you put it on your tummy and lie down with it for a bit. That should take the pain down. Eating right also, there seems to be something there about eating vegetables, taking a lot of water, and not giving in to those sugar cravings, which are not necessarily bad. Some people even say have some chocolate when you're on your period, but if you're able to just eat right, it does help a lot. Take lots of water. And then there's some certain exercises you could do. If it's stretching your back, your arm, doing a little bit of cardio if you can, that also seems to work for me. So the other question I got was, how long after birth will I need to wait to have my period? This completely depends. When I had my firstborn, it took about 6 months before my period came, almost 8 months. When I had my secondborn, it took 2 months, which don't know how I felt about that. So I think it really depends. Some people, it even takes up to a year. I know of a cousin of mine who it took a year and just over a year before her period came back. Again, if you're feeling like there's such a concern in terms of how prolonged it's been, seek medical advice. I think you just can never be too careful. If you feel like there's a shift in you that doesn't sit right, you know your body, you know your cycle. I know it changes with pregnancy and birth, but if you just feel like there's something off, just constantly research or ask a doctor for help. That's what I always say. So for me, it changed. And then I can also talk about lochia. I believe it's lochia. Some people call it lochia, but I think it's lochia. And that's discharge that comes, I think, largely after birth. And I've talked about it before. I think I talked about this like 2 years ago. And it can be so shocking because it's a lot. Let me describe what happened. I was at the salon doing my thing, and I just felt something it felt like my period, but it also felt like my period on steroids. Like it was just a heavy flow. And when I went to look, it had, what color was it? It was like mucusy. I can feel people in the room cringing. Like maybe that was a bit too much, but it was. And I'm like, I'm dying because it didn't stop coming out. So it had even soaked my pants. And luckily I had a maternity pad in my bag. So called my doctor while I was in the toilet frantically. And he was like, oh, it sounds like you have loche. And that's basically some form of postpartum discharge that can come. It doesn't necessarily come with everyone, but some people can have it. There's nothing wrong with it. It shouldn't have a foul smell. If it does, that means there's something wrong. It just has an odd smell. And so mine had an odd smell, not a foul smell. And I asked him, so how long is this going to go on for? He's like, if it happens for more than 2 days, come and see me. And so it went on for about an hour. I went home, it happened again, and the next day it didn't happen. So again, a lot of this stuff, I know it's not necessarily period related, but it's related to discharge coming from your vagina. So that's why I've included it in the conversation. So those are things to look out for. Birth changes a lot when it comes to your period. And no, there's nothing like the pain goes away or sijui, there's no cramps. In my case, there's nothing like that. For those of you who've had that experience, I'm so happy for you. For me, I still feel a lot of pain and I still bleed like crazy. Can tampons cause an infection is the other question. Absolutely. I don't know if you guys have heard of toxic shock syndrome, but it's one of the reasons why there's so much awareness around how long you keep your tampon on. Toxic shock syndrome, or TSS, can, in the worst cases, be fatal. That's the scariest thing about it. So people advise you to change your tampon round every few hours, even if you're a light bleeder. The problem is keeping your tampon in for too long. Some people say 4 hours, some people say 8 hours. I think just be careful that you're not keeping your tampon on the whole day. Change it round if you can. There's a model who's based in the US who made toxic shock syndrome a pretty big story because she had to have her legs amputated. She said she was in a cab and passed out. And the next thing she knows, she woke up, passed out again. And when she was admitted in hospital, they actually narrowed it down to toxic shock syndrome because she had her tampon on the whole day and night. And so you have to be really careful with the use of tampons. Please make sure that if you're not sure, again, I will be that proponent of speak to a doctor, speak to a gynecologist. But yes, can it cause an infection? I think any sanitary product can cause infection if you wear it for too long. If it's the wrong kind of material, which I'll get to. I know one of the questions was about why am I itching when I wear a product? So yes, tampons can, but they have helped so many women and girls. They're a great product to use when you're on your period because they free you up to do so many things. Just be careful about wearing them for too long and just make sure that it's a product, the make of the product is also good quality. So what makes the color of period blood change? I feel like I want to answer this with an image. So I'm going to put the image up and it'll show you the different colors and reasons why there's different colors of your period. Why are people looking confused? yeah, it can.
That's news.
It can. People are like, isn't it just red? No.
I've been married 9 years. Yeah.
Yes. You'll see the color.
It changes for the person, or it changes it's different for different people, like different colors.
It's different for different reasons. It's supposed to be. There's certain consistencies that are okay, but there's certain colors that show you there's something wrong with your period. So, for example, pink. Period blood mixed with cervical fluid, significant weight loss, unhealthy diet, anemia, if your period blood is pink. So that's a problem. If your period blood is bright red, it's fresh blood and a steady flow. So it should be bright red. If it's brown or dark red, it's the beginning or end of a period or early signs of pregnancy. And so that, for me, that was very consistent. If it's black, vaginal blockage. It means that there's probably an infection that's coming on. If it's orange, possible infection. And if it's gray, bacterial vaginosis. Again, something to read on, because I noticed the browns and the reds kept changing with me, but it was very consistent with certain transitions that were happening in my body. So when I was, after pregnancy, when my period is ending, usually it kind of changes to a brownish color. So yeah, that does matter. The other question here, I think this is the 7th question, why do I have clots? So it happens when the uterine. What did I say? Uterine. um, when the uterine lining sheds an excess amount of blood. Again, I used to clot a lot. And I think it's a problem when the clots are really big and you clot during every single period. And that for me was also because I had ovarian cysts. So I noticed I would have a really heavy flow and then a lot of clotting in between. I don't clot much nowadays. I don't even know that I clot at all. So obviously there was a problem. So if you do have clots, I would say have that checked. It may not necessarily be anything alarming, but it could be that there's cysts somewhere growing in there. And sometimes it's accompanied by a lot of pain. So again, it could be the beginning or something of endometriosis. So don't take that lightly. Why do pads itch? That alludes to what I was talking about when I talked about tampons. I think, first of all, we have such a big problem in this country of having products that are just really poor quality. There was a huge hashtag around my always experience and a lot of women saying, I'm always itching when I wear this pad or this and that. So sometimes it's about what kind of products that we have in the market. And that's a conversation that shouldn't be ignored. I know that it's controversial and sensitive and manufacturers don't want to comment and government doesn't want to comment, but I think there's a place to have conversations around what are these period products made of? Nobody even wants to say. Some people prefer to keep the ingredients secret, but you know what, it's kind of out there anyway. So sometimes it's what the product is made of itself. There are some chemicals within a pad or tampon that are not necessarily 100% healthy for you or for the environment. And I know that's controversial because we use them anyway. It's what we have now. We work with it. But the bigger issue is that you get products which are poor quality. And so, yes, you will itch. Sometimes you get an infection because of how much you're itching and how uncomfortable you are. And so that's around period products. And I know it's a really big conversation, even globally, around, first of all, can you just tell us what's in this product? B, can you just make products that are healthy for our skin? We're really not asking for much. We will menstruate every month for like goodness knows how many years. The least we can ask for is that the products we use don't cause discomfort. But also you could itch because you have an infection that may not necessarily be related to the product. So again, it's about checking. Are you itching all the time? Does every period come with itching? Is it that no matter what you wear or use, is it a menstrual cup, a tampon, a pad, a reusable pad, you're itching? That means it's probably your vagina that has a problem. So maybe have your vagina checked, I would say. But if it's if it's you use a certain product and it's itching, then maybe try and interrogate that. Why is my period late? You're pregnant. Sometimes it's your hormones. I know my period was late the other day, and I think no, my period was early. It was early. It was early when I traveled to New York, and it could be the change around, the changing timings, the changing weather, but I do remember it coming almost a week early. And so periods being late or early really come down to hormonal changes and changes in the environment. If your period is irregular, consistently irregular, does that need to be checked? I think ask about it. I struggle with irregular periods. I think I have for a long time. So they'll be regular for 5 months. And then for the other 3 months, they just decide to come when they come. Really, I'm in the middle of a presentation and it's like, hello, I'm here. Which is why we need period products everywhere. I had this amazing conversation with you guys about, has your period ever caught you unawares? And some of the stories were so funny. Some of them were really sad. Some people were like, yeah, I was literally in the middle of a presentation and my period came early. People were like, I was at a funeral. I was mid-air. And you realize in all these places, shouldn't there be period supplies? Whether it's an airline, whether it's in the church, whether it's in the office, whether it's in restaurants. I just feel like we have this thing that comes to us every single month. And we don't have access to the products as and when we need them, but you will see condom dispensers everywhere. Sex is a choice. Periods are not a choice. So one of the things that I'd really love to lobby for is to see that we have supplies everywhere. Campuses, for goodness sake, even on campus, you'll find that it's not necessarily the case. So period supplies is a big thing. I've digressed. Periods can come late because of issues around hormonal changes, etc. Okay, so my last question, I'm actually going to take from the gentlemen in the room, my lovely team of videographers. Yes, ask away.
So I want to know, what is your advice or what would you say to men on how they should treat women and the whole periods topic? Like, should they approach it? What should they do to make
Yeah.
it comfortable?
That's such a good question. First of all, welcome to the Club of Allies. Thank you. I think it's understanding that this is so normal. I know that because when we were really young, I don't think a lot of men, it wasn't explained to them in detail. It was just the girls were ushered into a certain room, and then when we came out, the boys were giggling. So it wasn't normalized from an early age, and that's unfortunate, and I hope that can change. So I think it's to understand that this is something so normal, and for many women, it can be awkward and uncomfortable. For some women, they love it and they thrive on it, but men need to first say, this is normal. So I'm not dealing with a strange occurrence. I'm dealing with something normal. The other thing is, I think, to just educate yourselves on, and it's not hard, it's literally on your phone, on the different periods that women experience. As you can tell from some of these answers, a really heavy period could be a sign of something dangerous, right? It could also be that you've missed your period because you're pregnant. So if you can educate yourself a little bit more on periods, what different periods mean for different women. If there's women in your life specifically, there's no harm having a little bit of a conversation with them. Make them, and it shouldn't be like, dude, why are you asking me about my period? It's just that, no, I just don't want you to be uncomfortable. Don't be canceling plans because you're on your period, and maybe if you just told me, I'm like, no, we can just continue with our plans. So make somebody feel comfortable just by saying, is it okay for us to have this conversation? Especially if she brings it up and says, I'm on my period. Like, okay, is it okay if we can chat about it? Is that something you're okay with? If she says, yeah, then just ask, is there anything I need to know? I know it sounds really strange, like, how is your flow? Depends on the kind of relationship you have with her. But I feel like for me, when somebody wants to have a conversation about my period, I feel really happy that they want to know what's going on with my body and the changes in it, and that they're showing me that they are there for me and that they support this occurrence that I have every month. So I'd say read up on it. Literally, you don't have to do a thesis or research level. It's just basic. What should I know about women and their periods? Honestly, PMS is a thing. PMS is a thing. It is. And sometimes I don't want to see anyone. And it's okay. Don't be like, you're just on your period. Don't ever tell a woman on her period that she's just on her period. We know we're on our period. That's why we're pissed off. But just say, okay, do you need a minute? What can I do to make you feel comfortable? It'll probably change her PMS around and be like, oh, could you get me water and chocolates, or chocolates and wine? And can we just watch a movie instead of going for dinner? Make me comfortable. Have I answered? Yes. Are you satisfied? Yay! That ends by... How's my period? My period's great. Don't ask. I can talk about my periods all day. Some people are just like, Jesus, you just talk about periods. I'm like, yeah. And again, it just takes me back to why I'm very passionate about this, because it can be such a disruption to families, to schools, to women, to men, to the workplace. Periods come in all shapes and forms. Sometimes they hold women and girls back completely, yet they don't have to. Why can't the workplace give menstrual leave? I know it happens in countries, is it Singapore and Japan, where women get a day or two? Because guess what? For some women, they're in such excruciating pain, they cannot function in the workplace. Why can't you just accept the fact that this happens, not everybody periods the same time. I should say menstruates, not periods. Not everybody menstruates the same way. And the moment we can be cognizant of that, I think we'll begin to address the issue in a more holistic and healthy way, and not make it, it's just periods. It's not just periods. This is something that can make me uncomfortable. It can make me insecure. It can keep me from working, keep me from going to school, keep me from thriving. But yet there's ways that if you allow me the access to certain products or information, I can still at least be as much myself as I possibly can. So conversations that will keep happening. And like I've said many times, it's something I'm working on that I'm so excited about. So hopefully towards the end of the year, you'll see why. And we'll have more emboldened conversations about periods. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Let me know if there's anything else. I do feel like some of the questions needed an expert. And so maybe that's something I could do at another time. But for now, it's just to say bye. And yeah, let me know what else you want me to talk about.